The main thing that I see as an intuitive is how most of us spend our lives hiding from who we are. What's going on in our world right now is we are now experiencing some pretty intense things because we are some pretty intense beings spiritually. And the more we ignore that, the more we suppress that, the more it needs to come out in some way. Now, given that we are inherently powerful and we haven't been taught how to access our power, how to tap into who we are, to tap into our mystical gifts and that love consciousness that created us, what we end up doing is suppressing it and suppressing it and suppressing it. And we have started to learn over the centuries how to fear it, right? When we think of the word power, we often think, oh my gosh, we think of it as a negative thing. What's going on right now is that the more we tap into who we are unconsciously, because it's happening in this, natural spiritual evolution, it's just unfolding within us, the more that the ego fights and tries to suppress it, the more it starts to burst in these other ways. So I really want to spend this episode talking about how can you as an individual start to recognize the power potential that you are, and how can you start tapping into that in ways that are positive, in ways that can support the collective, in ways that will create that love consciousness to come forth rather than exploding in fear, right? So let's look at this in this episode. Let's just play with this idea that you are this really incredibly powerful person and that you have access to this stuff within you and that you can positively tap into it and use it for the good of all. I think the most interesting thing about me being a mystic is honestly my lack of interest in it. In other words, I didn't necessarily study any particular philosophies. Yes, I was raised in a metaphysical household and was given a lot of information about, how we create our reality or ways to manifest and such. But I didn't do a lot of studying in terms of a formal way after that because it didn't necessarily interest me. What's funny is it doesn't really interest me so much now. And this is not to say that those who are interested in metaphysics, have something flawed about them, or if people who are considering themselves mystical aren't necessarily interested in studying, then there's anything wrong with them. I just wanted to be really clear that what I think is really strange is how I tap into these realms and how I get this information and really don't have an attachment to it, don't have any sense of like, oh, I have to learn more about this. It really just comes through at the moment and I bring it through and it feels very loving and feels very clear and feels very appropriate. And so sometimes I'll use things like the word vibration, or I'll feel into a dimension, or I'll experience something, but I don't always have the word. So I just wanted to offer that to you, that just because you are exploring who you are doesn't mean you have to get to an end result or have the answers or love meditation or love yoga or love eating organic food or any of that stuff. You get to be who you are and still discover who you are on deeper levels. I just wanted to throw that out to see, to share with you what it is my experience and to see what resonates with you, because that way you don't have to categorize yourself and say, well, these things don't apply, therefore I must not be, deeply spiritual. I believe that you came here to really make a difference in this incarnation, not just for yourself, but for the world. I want to be as clear as possible that this show is not just a how-to and let's keep it all fluffy and let me teach you some metaphysical things, but more a call to action. What I am specifically asking of you is to step into who you are, to allow yourself to experience your true power and potential. I really want to get into this idea of who you are as a frequency and why it's important that you expand that frequency to your highest potential, because when we do, we can impact the world. One of the things I see as we are all slowly but surely waking up all across the globe is that we are essentially creating our own matrix. So if I awaken here in California, right, and I have a client who's awakening over in Australia, we have, two very light beings. And then I have another one, let's say in Sweden, who's also lighting up the planet, right? And then I have another one over in Germany who's also lighting up the planet, right? And we start to create, in essence, this grid. Well, regardless of mass shootings or any terrorist attacks and such, which are really a darker, denser energy frequency, what I see is that old world, that old paradigm, that old way of being is not serving us. We can see that. We can see that in the pollution. We can see that in how people are treating each other. We could see that in the racism and the sexism and the anti-gayism that is trying to emerge or reemerge from the shadows of ourselves, of our egos, of our fear, right? In order to shift that, sure, we can bring consciousness and light and say, look at these people. Let's expose these people. Let's expose these situations. Let's expose these lies that have been told to us. We can do it that way, and it works. And more importantly, we can allow ourselves to tap into that powerful being that we are, that we came here to be, and to raise our own frequency by doing it. Now, personally, I'm not a big meditator. There's nothing wrong with meditation. It's just not something that necessarily resonates with me as a busy mom that is always going and that has so many jobs, right? So how I experience and expand my frequency is by doing this kind of work, whether it's one-on-one or whether it's one-on-many or whether it's simply staying aligned with what I know and who I am, and allowing my powerful self to come through whenever possible. So that's what this call to action is for you to allow yourself not just to be who you are in terms of, yeah, I'm a mystic or whatever in a verbal kind of way, but to really allow and expand and open up to that frequency that you are, that you came in here to be. If you take a moment just to open up your heart to me, and I'm opening my heart to you, and just take a deep breath and feel into your heart center. Find this center point, perhaps, in your heart area. Okay? I don't care if you call it a chakra. I don't care if you experience it as a physical heart, just whatever works for you. And if you breathe into that space, perhaps you'll experience an expansion. Perhaps you'll experience, because you and I are connecting as these 2 points of light, these explosions, let's say, or these sensations that happen when you tap into a frequency of someone else. And perhaps you can experience that grid that is being formed. The value of our grid reformulating is that we are then creating whichever dimension you want to call it. Now, I really don't get into the whole, what does it mean in terms of which dimension we're on or anything like that. I just can experience and feel and know multi-dimensions, multi-frequencies, and I don't always have the words to put to them because I also experience so much oneness that it's harder for me to discern. But what I see is the earth is really trying to rebirth herself into a higher frequency, which she actually already is. She's just trying to hold space for the people on the planet where they are, right? And wants to expand to our greatest potential, but it's up to us to say yes to that. So my call to action is for you, perhaps, in whatever way it looks like, to feel into that point of what your potential is, what your true frequency is, what you can bring through when you experience your own power, when you experience your true essence. As well, I'd love for you to make a commitment to say, yes, I'm doing this. I'm willing to do this work. I'm willing to step into who I am in spite of fear, in spite of so-called failures here and there, in spite of falling back, and going, wait, I can't do this. In spite of whatever's going on externally, oh no, we have to go out and change the world. Sure, go ahead and do that too. But really the call to action is to step into who you are and into that frequency and to say, yes, I'm going to remember why I came. I'm going to remember my frequency, and I'm going to do my best to bring that through whenever possible. And I will share with you a little bit of how to do that along the way, but that's really the call to action this week, because when we can all move through our fears in whatever little or small ways to be that being, our frequency expands in such a way and shines a light very brightly for the next person to connect into, right? And the next and the next. So with that, play a little bit, play with this breathing in, experiencing, feeling, and perhaps you'll have a sensation of who you really are by doing this. The basics are this. We didn't all come in with the exact same intention, and we are all very unique individuals, so our own personal journey is going to be different according to, our intention as a soul. However, what I will say is that there are some typical paths. The typical paths to self-discovery are, one is we have some kind of a yearning. We have some kind of a sense there's got to be something more. Second, we learn a little bit more about who we are. We have these aha moments like, am I really this big? Am I really this grand? And many times that's related to our gifts and the gifts that we plan to bring. And then third, we have a sense of purpose that really wants to come through us. And that purpose is often for the many. It could be that we serve in some way, we become teachers, we become healers, whatever. And the final piece is that we are given many opportunities to act on it. Now, when I say final piece, obviously it's a cyclical thing. We discover more of who we are the deeper we go. We learn more of our power and our gifts. And of course, we get more opportunities to serve. But what I'm asking of you is just to decide whether or not you want to commit to this awakening experience for yourself, and then to discover where you are on this path. Whether it's, the first layer and you're just for the first time going, oh, this is who I am, this is why I'm here, this is what I'm bringing. Or if you have been there, done that a few times, and you're just now going higher into your more expanded self. As we move into this together, we will begin to see change. I know this. I promise this, and I am so excited about it.